In the annals of software history, few companies rise as meteorically or fall as dramatically as Borland International. This was the company that democratized programming, bringing professional development tools to the masses at prices that seemed almost charitable. Founded in 1983 by Philippe Kahn, a charismatic French mathematician and jazz musician turned entrepreneur, Borland would spend the next 2 decades locked in an epic battle with Microsoft for the hearts and minds of the world's programmers. It's a story of innovation versus monopoly, of David taking on Goliath with nothing but brilliant code and audacious pricing strategies. But ultimately, it's a cautionary tale about what happens when a software giant decides that giving away products for free is worth more than any competitor's revenue stream. Philippe Kahn arrived in Silicon Valley in 1982 with $4,000, a head full of revolutionary ideas, and an almost reckless confidence that he could outsmart the entire software establishment. Working out of a cramped office in Scotts Valley, California, Kahn and his small team of engineers were about to unleash what would become one of the most disruptive products in computing history. Turbo Pascal, launched in 1983, wasn't just another programming language compiler. It was a complete integrated development environment that compiled code faster than anything on the market, included a built-in editor, debugger, and help system, and sold for the almost insulting price of $49.95. To put this in perspective, competing development tools from companies like Microsoft and IBM routinely cost between $300 and $700. Kahn had essentially taken a luxury product and turned it into an impulse purchase. The software industry was stunned, competitors were furious, and programmers around the world began lining up to buy what many considered the best development tool ever created at any price, let alone $50. The genius of Turbo Pascal went far beyond its revolutionary pricing. While other compilers were slow, cumbersome beasts that required multiple passes through source code, Turbo Pascal pioneered single-pass compilation that could build programs at speeds that seemed almost supernatural to developers accustomed to waiting minutes or even hours for their code to compile. The integrated development environment was years ahead of its time, combining editing, compiling, debugging, and running into a seamless workflow that made programming feel almost effortless. Kahn understood something fundamental that his competitors missed. The future belonged not just to professional programmers working at major corporations, but to the hobbyists, students, and small-scale developers who would drive the personal computer revolution. By 1984, Turbo Pascal was selling at a rate of 15,000 copies per month, generating millions in revenue and establishing Borland as a serious player in the development tools market. The success was so dramatic that it forced every other compiler vendor to slash their prices, fundamentally reshaping the economics of the entire industry. Building on the explosive success of Turbo Pascal, Borland embarked on an ambitious expansion strategy that would establish the company as the premier provider of programming tools across multiple languages and platforms. In 1985, they launched Turbo C, bringing the same revolutionary approach to the C programming language that was becoming the standard for serious software development. The following year came Sidekick, a terminate and stay resident utility that provided calculator, notepad, and calendar functions accessible from within any DOS application. Sidekick wasn't just popular, it was ubiquitous, selling over 1 million copies and proving that Borland could innovate beyond traditional programming tools. In 1987, they released Quattro, a spreadsheet application that directly challenged Lotus 1-2-3's dominance with superior features and naturally a much lower price point. Quattro Pro, launched in 1989, pushed even further ahead with 3-dimensional spreadsheets and analytical capabilities that made Excel look primitive by comparison. During this golden period, Borland's annual revenues exploded from $6 million in 1984 to over $400 million by 1990, making it one of the fastest-growing software companies in history. The early 1990s represented Borland's peak ambitions as they attempted to challenge Microsoft across virtually every category of software. Paradox, their database management system, offered sophisticated relational database capabilities with an intuitive interface that made it accessible to non-technical users while remaining powerful enough for professional developers. Object Vision promised to revolutionize application development with visual programming tools that would allow users to create sophisticated applications without traditional coding. Most ambitiously, Borland launched DBase 4, acquired through their purchase of Ashton Tate, positioning themselves as a major player in the database market that was becoming increasingly crucial as businesses computerized their operations. The company went public in 1989, raising capital for even more aggressive expansion, and by 1991 employed over 4,000 people across multiple offices worldwide. Philippe Kahn graced the covers of business magazines as the French maverick who was teaching American software giants how to compete on innovation rather than marketing muscle. But even as Borland reached the heights of its success, fundamental shifts in the software industry were undermining the very foundations of their business model. Microsoft, initially caught off guard by Borland's pricing strategies and technical innovations, began to recognize that the development tools market was strategically critical to their broader ambitions. If Microsoft controlled the tools that programmers used, they could influence what platforms those programmers targeted, what APIs they employed, and ultimately which operating systems would dominate the future of computing. The release of Windows 3.0 in 1990 marked the beginning of a seismic shift away from DOS-based applications toward graphical user interfaces, and Microsoft held all the cards in this new world. Visual Basic, launched in 1991, represented Microsoft's first serious attempt to out-innovate Borland at their own game, offering rapid application development tools specifically designed for the Windows environment. While Visual Basic initially couldn't match the speed and elegance of Borland's tools, it had one overwhelming advantage. It was designed from the ground up to take advantage of Windows APIs and services that only Microsoft fully understood. The real turning point came when Microsoft made a strategic decision that would prove devastating to Borland and every other development tools vendor. They began giving away their compilers and development tools for free. Microsoft C, Visual C++, and eventually entire development suites were bundled with operating systems, included with magazine subscriptions or distributed at token prices that made even Borland's aggressive pricing look expensive. This wasn't charity or oversight, it was a calculated strategy to eliminate competition in a market that Microsoft now understood was crucial to their platform dominance. Borland, dependent on selling development tools for revenue, simply couldn't compete with a company that viewed those same tools as loss leaders in service of larger strategic goals. The situation became even more challenging as Microsoft leveraged their intimate knowledge of Windows internals to ensure their tools worked better with new operating system features, API changes, and development frameworks. When Microsoft introduced the Microsoft Foundation classes and later the .NET framework, Borland found themselves perpetually playing catch-up, trying to reverse engineer APIs and development patterns that Microsoft teams had designed specifically for their own tools. As the Windows ecosystem matured throughout the mid-1990s, Borland's position became increasingly untenable. Their attempts to match Microsoft's rapid development pace led to a series of strategic missteps and product delays that eroded their reputation for technical excellence. Borland C++ 4.0, released in 1993, was plagued with bugs and compatibility issues that frustrated longtime customers who had come to expect flawless execution from Borland products. The company's database products struggled to compete with Microsoft Access, which benefited from tight integration with Microsoft Office and Windows, while their spreadsheet applications were overwhelmed by Excel's marketing budget and bundling advantages. Internal conflicts over strategic direction led to management turmoil, with Philippe Kahn eventually stepping down as CEO in 1994 amid disagreements about whether Borland should focus on development tools or attempt to compete more broadly with Microsoft across multiple application categories. The company attempted to reinvent itself multiple times, spinning off Quattro Pro and Paradox into a separate applications company while refocusing the core business on development tools. But these reorganizations only added confusion and uncertainty to an already challenging competitive situation. The final phase of Borland's decline stretched across the late 1990s and early 2000s, marked by a series of desperate attempts to find relevance in a software industry increasingly dominated by web technologies and Microsoft's development platforms. Borland Delphi, launched in 1995, represented perhaps their last great innovation, a rapid application development environment for Windows that combined the power of Object Pascal with visual design tools that made creating sophisticated applications remarkably straightforward. Delphi found a loyal following among developers who appreciated its speed, reliability, and elegant approach to object-oriented programming, but it never achieved the mainstream adoption necessary to restore Borland's former prominence. the rise of Java in the late 1990s offered another opportunity, and Borland responded with JBuilder, an integrated development environment for Java that was technically superior to many competing products. However, Sun Microsystems, IBM, and eventually Oracle controlled the Java ecosystem, while Microsoft was simultaneously promoting their own .NET framework as the future of Windows development. Caught between these competing platforms, Borland lacked the resources and market position to significantly influence either direction. The Internet revolution and the shift toward web-based applications represented both opportunity and challenge for Borland's development tools business. While new programming languages, frameworks, and development methodologies created demand for innovative tools, the open-source movement was simultaneously undermining the entire premise of selling development software. GCC, the GNU Compiler Collection, provided free, high-quality compilers for multiple programming languages, while projects like Eclipse offered sophisticated integrated development environments without licensing costs. The same democratization of programming tools that Borland had pioneered with Turbo Pascal was now working against them, as open-source alternatives eliminated the price advantage that had originally made Borland products so attractive. Microsoft adapted to this new reality by making their development tools freely available to students, small businesses, and open-source projects, while monetizing through enterprise licensing, support services, and platform lock-in effects. Borland, lacking a platform to defend and unable to match Microsoft's ability to subsidize development tools through other revenue streams, found their traditional business model obsolete. CodeGear, the development tools division that represented Borland's core business, was sold to Embarcadero Technologies in 2008 for approximately $30 million, a fraction of what the company had been worth during its peak years. The Borland name itself was retired in 2009 when the remaining company, focused on application lifecycle management tools, was renamed Micro Focus International. The story of Borland's rise and fall illuminates fundamental truths about competition in the software industry that remain relevant today. Borland proved that innovative products and aggressive pricing could disrupt established markets and create entirely new categories of users, democratizing tools that had previously been available only to large corporations and wealthy developers. Their technical achievements, from the blazing speed of Turbo Pascal to the elegant simplicity of Delphi, demonstrated that small teams of brilliant engineers could out-innovate much larger competitors when freed from bureaucratic constraints and focused on solving real problems for developers. Philippe Kahn's vision of affordable, powerful programming tools helped launch countless careers and enabled the creation of thousands of applications that might never have existed if development tools had remained prohibitively expensive. However, Borland's ultimate defeat also demonstrates the overwhelming power of platform control in the software industry. Once Microsoft recognized that development tools were strategically crucial to maintaining Windows dominance, they were willing to sacrifice short-term profits from tool sales in service of long-term platform control, a strategy that Borland, as an independent tools vendor, could never match. The company that taught the software industry how to compete on price ultimately learned that some competitors can afford to give away products that others need to sell for survival, transforming innovation advantages into existential disadvantages when platform wars escalate beyond traditional market competition.